my inner knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path. Hello.
Well, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is our first video podcast.
Of the two of us.
Of the two of us.
That's why I was like, what?
Oh, yeah. Because we've recorded quite a few guests that are coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is the first one that will be published of just the two of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what's on your heart today?
It's something I don't want to talk about. It's why it's awkward right now. Yeah.
It's okay. You don't want to talk about it? We don't have to. We can talk about something else.
I can be brave.
You are brave, babe.
Mm-hmm.
Is it helpful for you, do you think?
I don't know. We'll only know when we get to the other side.
Okay. Where do you want to start?
I don't know. Got any questions? We'll start just by letting, So my dog of 15 years, who was my good friend, I had to end his life last week. It just turned really fast over the weekend, and it was a little bit... Well, I don't know. And just in retrospect, I'm, second guessing decisions that I made or observations that I was, not seeing him suffer, seeing what I wanted to so that I could keep him with me. Mm-hmm. So anyway, his name was Hughie. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know. It's hard just because I've been seeing today people's posts on Facebook, of their despair at losing their pet. And there's part of me that's just like, fucking get over it. It's just a dog. So I don't know what that's about because I'm enduring my own suffering. He went everywhere with me. He was with me just about 24/7, because he rode to court with me. He went to depositions and, he'd be out in the car with the air conditioner running or the truck. And when it was warm and when it was cold, he'd be all snuggly back there. And he felt safe there. He liked it better. He never was upset when I'd get out of the truck and would go in because he knew if he was in the truck that I was coming back.
Yeah.
Versus making him stay at the house where I live. So through, my divorce, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago when it started because it took forever. Yeah. He originally came with me when I moved out. But we had bought him ostensibly for Libby as her dog, but he was my dog. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I was his person. I mean, she was too. But it changed, once everything wound itself out. But in any event, she decided to move back in with her mom and she wanted to take him. And so she did. And I was just heartbroken. Mm-hmm. And so he, I go out there to do stuff with Libby or take care of something at the farm, etc. And as soon as my door was open, he would jump into the truck mm-hmm. and like, take me with you. Mm. So, and he, he struggled in that situation. He wasn't getting taken care of very well. They were distracted. I don't know what's going on, but he just had some trauma from that, and me leaving him repeatedly because I'd have to drag him out of the back of the truck.
Yeah,
how they mm-hmm. he wanted to go with me. Mm-hmm. So anyway, he was with me through all of that, the difficulties of the divorce, and through the divorce, difficult relationship with my daughter, who I love dearly, and so, there's just this constant in our lives, and, they're never not happy to see you. They're always thrilled. It's just like it's the greatest thing that ever happened. Mm-hmm. And, that's just kind of what's special about dogs. There's lots of things that are special about them, and they have a lot to teach us.
Yeah.
About nobility and about appropriate use of power and empathy and honesty. They're honest. Mm.
Yeah.
If you're watching, some people don't read dogs very well, but if you're watching, they're very honest. Mm-hmm. They are telegraphing what's coming.
Yeah.
So anyway, he was just lovely, and I miss him.
Yeah.
He in my office would lay with his head under my chair. He had to be that close. And, if I was watching TV at night, he'd had to have a paw on me. And he'd repeatedly, get up and get a toy, or want to go get a drink, or, want to get a snack. He's pretty food focused in his last couple of years, but, he would just always come over and greet, and he had a nice relationship with you too. He loved you. Mm-hmm. And what was really just sweet, he was a greeter, always was, from the time he was a puppy. He'd run up, get all excited to see you, and then he'd have to come tell me, mm-hmm. Who's Theresa? Teresa's here. Can you believe that Teresa's here? That's Teresa's car. Did you know that? So, yeah. And then, I think we all go through those things where, well, if I had not been selfish, or, watching closer, or just second guessing how we did, because he had been doing a lot of panting the last year, which I think was an indicator that there was a tumor or something that was, or fluid compressing his lungs. But he, what I always said was, as long as he's playing with his toys, we're good. Mm-hmm. And he played with his toys all the way up till 2 days before I killed him. So. And so I keep replaying, the last day. And I would get frustrated with him sometimes, he was just, and so we go through those things, where he's panting in the middle of the night. I'm like, quiet, or the relentless food thing, which now it's just easy to go to a space where you blame yourself, and you told me. But I'm not there very much. I loved him and he knew it. And I took really good care of him. He'd have been dead 3 years prior, at least, with the legs starting to fail and stuff, if I hadn't completely changed his diet with expensive natural food from the farmer's dog. Great company, by the way. And we're not a sponsor. It's healthy food for the dog and took out tons of inflammation. Mm-hmm. And then there were supplements, and then he was getting shots for the last 6 months or so of a product called Librela, which makes a huge difference for, the legs. And I'm just saying all those things because I care about animals. And if you want to take really good care of your dog, you start giving the supplements with the, all the things that they need. But anyway, I got myself out of the emotional part. Deflection, as we do. Yeah, because this is hard. And what's not driving the emotion is, regret, particularly because I wasn't mean to him. I would just get like snippy sometimes, like, come on, or you're not getting any more food. And, once they're gone, it's just like, whew. Why wasn't I feeding him ding dongs, Whatever. Well, that's chocolate. Well, whatever.
Twinkies.
And it's just this balance you're struck between. He was literally hungry all the time. And in retrospect, I'm wondering if that was him, needing to compensate for how hard his body was working just to stay.
Yeah.
So, and you're so observant. You saw funny, he had such a sweet, funny personality, but I didn't understand parts of it that you taught me, because we'd be eating dinner at the table and he'd come up with a toy. And I mean, he would give me toys other times. Most people he wouldn't give his toy, but, he'd give it to me and want me to throw it, so I thought that's what it was. But you said, I think it's a trade, because he didn't really want the toy back.
Right.
He was trading, which was fascinating. We think, well, what's their level of intelligence and their level of sentience? And some people question that, which I don't understand.
Yeah.
That dog was a therapist.
Yes. Yeah.
But anyway, he took good care of me. Mm-hmm. And he was always, I'm sure it was a difficult job. There'd been a lot of hard parts in my life with tons of moves and, difficulty at work, the divorce, all that stuff. And he was just always on and always taking care of me. He was an empath. Mm-hmm. He knew when people were upset. If I had clients come in, and they were starting to get upset, he would go over gently, mm-hmm. and just, tell them it's okay. Mm-hmm. Before one trial, he climbed up in somebody's lap. He wasn't a lap dog, but he was like, I'm coming up. And it was healing for her. She was weeping because her mother had died and she was going to have to testify at trial. And, here's my Hughie, just watching out for people.
Yeah. 95-pound lap dog. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, yeah. So he'd sleep by me at night. His bed was across the room, but he'd come over and he'd be right there. So, I'm still, when I wake up in the middle of the night and have to go to the bathroom or whatever, it's always like I'm looking for where he is.
Yeah.
And he kept time for me,
Mm-hmm.
kept getting earlier for dinner, but he knew exactly when dinner was supposed to be. And he'd start his routine. And then in the morning, he'd intentionally go in the bathroom and click his toenails on the floor, on the tile. Click, click, click. He was standing there. I'd open my eyes, because I could see right in the bathroom door and he'd be standing there looking at me like, yes. And most of the time I would just say, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I don't, the regrets of times that I wasn't patient are not substantial. The last day keeps replaying. And the actual killing part with the vet. I mean, it was done as well as it possibly could be, I think. I mean, there's some aspects that were not how I would have imagined it and hoped to do it. That part's the hardest. So.
What else do you need to say about it, babe?
Well, I guess I'll tell about that. I just, like all dogs, he loved to go for a walk, and we had our routine. And just as he got older, it was just, he was slower and wanted to mosey and sniff. And I did a pretty good job of being patient with that, unless I was in a rush to get, because I had, a hearing or a phone call or whatever scheduled conference call. He, what bothered me the most is he would eat goose poop near the pond. And so if I'd let him go do the sniffing, pretty soon he'd be chomping on something. And that was just like, come on, let's go. So, anyway, we kind of worked out a deal where he could mosey up to a certain point around the pond, and then we'd, be more direct. It wasn't a sprint effort. He couldn't, he wasn't down for that anymore. But anyway, on the last walk we had together, we had a meeting, and I was taking him late, and so I'd noticed over the weekend, his tummy would look weird, distended. I didn't understand it at the time, and I'm like, are you just fat? Because I'd been giving him more treats to try to satiate him. And I'd felt it, and it didn't, it was not right. But I was just like, I don't know. So anyway, I took him on that walk, and I even talked to Libby, my daughter, that day, and, and said, I don't know if there's something wrong or if he's just fat. So I took him, and he was just slow. He wasn't getting around well. It was hard for him to strengthen the back legs, and he just had a shot a couple of weeks ago. Normally that was good for a month. And so he was having difficulty getting up the stairs into my office, and in and out of the truck. I mean, he was able to do it, but you could tell it was a struggle. And so he was going really slow, but then he wanted to, he was just sniffing. And I didn't want him eating crap, so that last walk around the pond that we had together, I pulled him several times, not just like yanking to jerk his neck or anything, nothing mean, but not, if I had known, I'd have given him all the time he wanted. So I think we always think we've got more time with people we love. And so, I didn't put him in any distress really, but, we could communicate without words, and I think he was fussy too, just like, geez, all I want to do is smell. So anyway, I brought him back around, and we did a little shorter walk, which it had been getting shorter just so he could do it. But Anyway, I left him at the office and came and did the meeting. And then, went back and, it's just looking, he was laying, he'd kind of gotten a toy, but he wasn't, I tossed it once and he just kind of looked at it. And then I went and got it, brought it back to him. So he wasn't chasing it. But he wanted it with him because another cute, lovely thing about him is, wherever it was, whether at your house with the basket where all of his toys were kept or at my house where they could be loose, wherever, he would always first thing go gather them, pull them out of the basket at your house. And so he'd be laying there with all of his toys around him, picking which one was, going to be shaken. So he's there with his two favorites, Goat Boy and Alligator. And he lays on his side and his tummy is like, it's just sticking up. It's so distended. And so, those things just run through your mind. And this is just graphic, but I'm just like, I'm touching it and it's just so tight, like a drum. And so I, tapped on it with my finger like that. And it sounded like a dull drum. And I was just like, oh no, And he wasn't acting like he was in a lot of pain, but he was panting, like he had been. So, but the toy thing was concerning. And so I started researching it, Google. And, it was like, yeah, if the tummy's distended and, it was like if they're still going to the bathroom, and he still was going both. But in any event, I just decided to take him to the emergency vet. And, more of the hard part for me is, we get there and, he came down the steps from the back of the truck. Okay. And not a problem. He did it himself. And then I hooked him up on his leash and we went in and I did the paperwork. And then one of the nurses came out and, he didn't want her touching him. And, he'd gotten to the point where, it had to be on his terms. He didn't touch his back and that sort of thing. And, so, she's looking at him. Then she says, I think he's just fat. Of course, my heart is like, whew, good. We can have some more time here. And then she's looking and then, she wants to touch his tummy because I was, I heard that and I wanted to believe it, but I also was saying, I think there's something wrong. It's not good. And so I had to muzzle him. They gave me the muzzle and I put it on him. And that was never, it's just difficult to do that to your friend, And so they had him and he was, as much as he could, he just didn't have a whole lot of energy. You called it lethargic. But he was struggling because he didn't want them messing with his stomach. And so another nurse came out and they were kind of, got him pinned up against not in a rough way, but just between the two of them, up against the base of the counter. And he's dealing with them. And then all of a sudden, he's like the wall is here, and he's here and I'm over there and here are the two nurses. Well, there was enough room that he could see me and he's just looking at me like, just help me. And I didn't want to, reach out. I wanted to reach out, and touch him, but I didn't. But I stood there and I said, you're okay. So I didn't do that poorly. He knew that I was with him and present. So they said, we'll take him back. They wanted to do a test, draw some fluid out of the belly to see. And then, so they took him back and the doctor came out at some point and she was, lingering before other people left the room. And then they left. And then she said, are you Hughie's dad? And she was concerned and, was basically saying its time is soon. We don't know. We may be able to remove some of the fluid and, at least give him some relief and, things like that. And then we'll see, what, if there's any treatment options. And I knew if it was cancer that we weren't doing chemo and all that stuff with him. He was 15 and I didn't want him to suffer. And I told her, I said, I just want to make a good decision for my friend. So she said, well, if you're down for the money, we'll do some CT scans and some other blood tests and things like that, and then see, so you can make an informed decision. I understand. And I said, okay. So I think around then is when, or I guess I was outside when you came, but this is a lot, of talking. So, they said, if we don't call you by 1 a.m., you call us, because the doctor's here till 4 or 6 or something like that. And you'll need to come pick him up between 6:30 and 7, because we've got that window before the day vet and her staff show up. And I said, okay. So I'm thinking, that there's going to be a little more time and, not knowing. I mean, I was concerned, So you came to take care of me, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Middle of the night, you were just exhausted already, and right there, as soon as I texted you, I'm coming. Thanks. And so anyway, it's 1 o'clock. We get the call, or 12:30, whatever it was. It must have been about 12:30 because I think he was dead at 1:11. I don't know. I saw the clock somewhere around that time. God. So we go back over, and she says, well, we sedated him, they had told me it would be just to make it easier for him to breathe and, not be so scared, that they would give him a little sedation. But anyway, she said, well, I think the nurse gave him like a double dose or something. So he's resting, but, this needs to happen, basically. She was giving me choices, and I said, listen, I don't want him to suffer. And then she said, so that's what needs to happen. And then she asks me, basically almost assuming that I wouldn't come to be with him when they did it. And I was like, he is not going alone. And she was just really grateful. You read those posts about, I've seen it recycled on Facebook, but, veterinarians saying that, it's just heartbreaking to them when the family, or the owner doesn't come in the room when they're dying, because they're looking, you're their whole world. And, there was no way. Did I want to? No. But I needed to. So I said, okay, we're doing it. And, there were people that loved Hughie that I would have wanted to know so they could come if they wanted to be there and, if they could. And, but I wasn't, they said he's sedated, but responsive. And I, it was like that. I just knew I was not going to have him come fully out of, so I could bring him home for the night and then talk to a dog oncologist. Cause she said that, he's got cancer, his blood levels are off the charts. Like, it should be 10% and it's 2000%, and liver levels were bad, just all kinds of stuff. And, the fluid was partially blood, but not all blood. And I mean, it was just bad. So anyway, here's the painful piece is not, I mean, that's painful too when when I did it. But when they, the vet had come out before you and I went back, home, and they had me in a exam room at that point with him, and he laid down like he always does, right at my feet with his back touching my foot. And I just was leaned down, and, I was scared at that point, but I wasn't certain. And just telling him, what a good job he'd done taking care of me and thanking him, and he's just laying there sideways looking at me. It wasn't like help me or anything. He was just happy to be with me. And so the nurse came in, and we're going to keep him, do these tests that I said. And I handed her the leash, and I walked out, and she took him the other way, and he started going with her, and I heard her say good boy, and then he stopped because he wanted to come with me, and I didn't turn around. And so that was the last time he was fully awake. And that piece just keeps going through my mind. And I'd already told him what I need to tell him. In any event, so I knew that he would have been anxious and all that. So I was glad they sedated him. But I also knew once that happened and the vet was saying this is going to have to, you need to make a decision. And yes, that's the right decision. I wasn't going to let him come all the way out and have to go through the anxiety again, just to soothe my conscience. Yeah. We're getting to the real here. So, and then the other part, I don't have regrets about it because we all did it really well. But, Chris came and Luke was on the way all the way from college at 1 a.m. And Hughie and Chris were close too. Chris had taken care of him a lot while you and I traveled and loved him. So anyway, they two nurses bring him in, and he's big. He wasn't 95 by then. The farmer's dog had helped drop his weight down to 82, or well, who knows? It probably gotten back up to 86 because of all the treats I kept giving him near the end, last month. But they brought him in, and they had him on a stretcher basically, but it was a big tray, which is kind of gross. But they almost dropped him. That's my recall, just because he was heavy and they're trying to lift him up to the exam table. But there's just those little things that, your mind sees. But in any event, he's laying on his side, with his back to us, but he's just flat, he's looking the direction they're coming towards us. And he and I, he saw me because he was awake at that point. Not fully, but he saw me, and I could tell we had, communication, which was like, God, you're here, So they've already got the IV in the back leg, and they set him down, and I don't know if I'd stood up by then or not. But the nurse that's holding the head of the gurney or whatever, the stretcher, reaches over him to move a blanket or something like that, and he raises up and tries to snap at her. He's just protecting himself. And so his head was still up, and I walked over, and I put my hand on him, and as soon as he smelled me, he just laid back down, just calm. And I was talking to him, just telling him how much I loved him and thanking him. But I was trying really hard not to just lose my shit, do this. Because they didn't want him to think he needed to be taking care of me. Because he would. That was nature. So, I kept it together for the most part. I thought maybe your experience was different. Maybe I lost it and I just thought I was doing okay. But I made sure he knew, I was there the whole time. I had my hand on his nose like this so he could smell my paw. And I brought some treats for him, thinking I'd be able to give him a treat. But he was so out of it. That wasn't going to happen. But I had his favorite toys. And I put those up by his face where he always, because he'd sleep with it, under his nose or on his nose. And so he had all that. And I'm sure with their sense of smell, even if he wasn't seeing, his eyes were somewhat open, but shoot, he slept that way. So, I don't know that he saw me anymore after when he first came in the room or when I got over and put my hand on him. But, I think I handled all that really well. And you did too, you're sweet standing there. Chris came over and petted him. Chris had kind of been hanging out, a little couple of feet away. Just, it's a lot to see our friend and know what's going to happen. What needed to happen. So I breathed in his nose, blew and told him I loved him and just well done. Well done. Because it was. And so I've put one other dog down, and when they did it, they put this stuff in, and it was a different mix or whatever, but it was all at once, and it was really, because I'd read about it, and I was like, well, they put them out first, and then they administer a drug that stops their heart. And I knew enough at this point, more experience, to ask the vet, how are we doing this? And she said, it's a 2-step process. I'll make sure he's, out completely, and then we'll do the other. And so, as out as he was, I know he knows we were there.
Yeah.
So I put kept my hand on his, on his face so he could smell me. And she said, sometimes their eyes don't close, which my experience is they don't. So I was, just gently, keeping his eyelids lower as I could, And I had my hand on his chest. I could feel his heart beating, like whenever he'd lay with me. Until it wasn't. And here's the really cool part about the whole thing. And I don't know what you saw or not, but I know you heard what I said because it stopped and I had to move my hand so the vet could put her stethoscope up there, even though I knew it was stopped. She needed to check. It's what they have to do. And, she's teary. I think she was teary just because of, that it was done well. I think she was grateful because she's an animal lover or she wouldn't do it. And I'm sure she's experienced when it doesn't, the family's not there. So anyway, the really cool part is when he was gone and his heart had stopped, it was like, we were quiet. And I described it in the text to my sisters and his friends, that dogs are so, noble, even in death. And, he didn't complain. He was just grateful we were there. That nobility of spirit is a beautiful thing. And then the vet leaves, she doesn't want to stand around. She said, take all the time you want. And so we're there. And it was like this golden light over him. It's what I saw. And, like shining down, subtle, but it was a different tone. And I'm looking at his face, I kissed him. And you remember I said he didn't like me to touch his paws. So you said you can touch his paws all you want. Because I did a little bit, but I knew that he didn't like it. So, but anyway, looking at him in that golden light, and it was like, I'm going to need the tissue in a second. I'm good. It was like he was just beautiful. And his color, because his face had gotten so gray. And this is the happy part. I mean, it's really hard, but it's happy. To see that. Because it was like the gray had gone. Mm-hmm. And he was, he had white in his hair as a blue heeler, and there was a little bit of brown and all that. And it just looked like he was young again. I mean, not his body, but just his face. So I don't know if we just make that shit up or I really saw it. I want it to be the latter. So that was lovely. And I said, if you remember, I was just like, oh, he's beautiful. And then I looked up and I went, to help him go. Because I didn't want him hanging around, having to take care of me some more after doing everything he possibly could. So I guess that's my process, but I keep going back to the room, going through this. And so just dealing with that and dealing with the idea about, attachment and you know, we say, oh, they need us more than we need them and that sort of thing. And I don't know that that was true. I mean, he needed me completely, but I think maybe I needed him completely too. Relied on him that way. It's okay.
Oh.
So I'm just analyzing that piece. We talked about it this morning, because I've never been alone. I mean, maybe for a short period of time, but not like it is now. So it, to me, it's no different than a human being's death. But when it's not your family member and it's not your dog, it's just amazing to me how we can detach. Like today, but I know it's a trauma response when I'm looking at people's anguish because I'm doing it right now in front of everybody. Just, it's deep. And I loved him so much. And, they love unconditionally. That's another thing they teach us too, because they are. But I'm reactive, and it's just like, oh, give it a rest. That's your third post about your dog, and I haven't even posted. I don't know why. It's just, I don't know. I posted pictures of him before, coffee with Hughie and things like that. But what do you suppose that judgment piece is? I've been interested today thinking about it. Get over it. It's just a dog.
I mean, I guess my first thought, babe, is just denial of our own pain, or wanting to deny our own pain, not wanting to feel this depth of emotion, or we shouldn't feel this depth of emotion for an animal. I don't know. I think it can be a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Frustration, still working through the grief piece, the loss. I mean, I use the word disoriented, but you're disoriented. Everything in your life is different right now. Everything.
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny because I feel there's like also like a shame, about it. It's just like, there are, as we've discussed before, we have good friends who've lost children. And so, part of me is afraid that my anguish over this could be triggering for them.
Sure. It's possible, babe.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but it's possible.
No, it is. It could be. But I mean, I'm not going to deny it. It is what it is. But I have a close relationship with my animals. There's a big responsibility, and they can sense me very well, all of them.
Yeah.
And like me, and I feel like we communicate, not in words, but thoughts. So, yeah, it's just funny, all the different things that you go through. I was talking with this other lawyer, because I had to cancel something because I just couldn't do it. We had 2 depositions scheduled, and he was wanting to talk about it the next day because we had another deposition scheduled the next day. And I said, I'll do it. But he knew why. And he was sharing about losing one of their dogs. And he just said, I cried like a baby. And he said, and I love my wife's parents. She said, but I did not cry like that when they passed. And so he's like, I'm sure my wife was like, what the hell? But I don't know. Maybe she was crying too. I don't know. So I want to stay away from comparative valuations.
Yeah.
It's not productive for sure.
Yeah.
But, what I typically will say when people post about their animals is, I'm so sorry you lost your friend. We're blessed, to have them teach us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true.
Yeah.
And I love the quote, be the person your dog thinks you are.
Yes.
And if we could all live up to that, I think the world would be a better place.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So my life is better for having known Hughie.
Yeah.
And having had the relationship than not,
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, folks.
It's okay.
Yeah. Shielding ourselves, because we don't want to get hurt. We don't want to, love that deeply, whether it's person or animals. I'm glad that's not where I was with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, then I remember when my first adult, pet died. He was my first baby. And he was a great dog too, another blue heeler. But I was like, yeah, we're not getting a dog for a while, and then within a year we had Hughie, I think. So I'm going through that piece now too, but it probably is true. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to hide from the relationship because I love animals, know. But not now. And there's the responsibility piece, I want to travel and it's not fair if they don't go with you because they want you. Like I said, they don't have many choices, but we have all the choices we want. And they choose us.
Yes, they do.
Okay. You hardly got a question in.
That's okay.
What were you going to say? And then what? And you weren't going to say, I'm just saying, what could you ask me in that process? It's just so much. So,
I'm sorry it hurts so much, babe.
Yeah. I guess a corollary quote could be, I want people to see me like my dog sees me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of you.
Yeah. And we all just want to be seen. We talk about that a lot, and it's true. And
yes.
I think that's the depth of the loss, is not having, that with zero judgment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So. I didn't really want to have this conversation.
Why did you choose to?
In a way to honor Hughie.
Yeah.
He mattered.
He did.
All of us do.
Yes.
And he was a good teacher. So I think that's probably why, even though I wanted to just, I know we're not supposed to push away the pain and we need to blah, 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 but you want to get over it. It's just like, me being mopey all the time is not easy for everyone, including you. Not that you haven't been completely gracious, but it takes a toll on everybody. But I think that's just, shame that comes along with grief, because we're human. We're silly humans. So,
I love you, babe.
I love you too. Thank you for loving Hughie too.
Mm-hmm.
And for loving me and taking time to be there. I'm sure he was happy you were there with your hands on him too.
Yeah. What do you think you need most right now? It's been about a week and a half.
I need to learn how to love myself as much as Hughie loved me.
Yeah.
I think that's what I need most.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I can do that, then like the quote that you posted recently, I'll be home wherever I am.
Yeah.
What makes you cry?
I want that for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self-growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.